Mid-spring, Hubyar to Quyaz. The journey to Quyaz was comparatively uneventful. I was glad to have a chance to pass along the coast, to sniff the wild thyme and the salt air. My mother was born in this region. My father, who was briefly a sailor, had met her in Sanala and brought her to the Empire. I stopped in Sanala and had a dish of sardines cooked with almonds and raisins and fennel, a dish my mother used to make. They used much more oil than she would have, and it was of poor quality and slightly bitter, but the fennel was good and fragrant, and carried me back to my childhood. I am glad I ate well on the journey, for Lass lived up to his reputation. I never met a more compassionate soul, nor a worse host. If you were not bleeding, feverish, or puking your guts out, it was as though he stared right through you. When I arrived at his house, he muttered a welcome, then dashed off. The emir had returned from the battle of Hussenfolk, and there were bones to be set, wounds to be cleaned, and infections to treat. Lass didn't even offer me his bitterly circulatory concoction, but his two servants took pity on me and brought me some stuffed sausages from the marketplace, begging me to eat them quickly lest their master see the food and give me a lecture on the cleanliness of street cuisine. Lass returned later and spent the rest of the night dictating orders to his servants for willow bark for fevers, aquavit to clean wounds, and silk for bandages. I noticed the servants took far more silver than necessary to pay for these goods, and made some comment to one of them about it. The servant explained that their master never remembered to pay them, as he spent all his money on medicines for strangers, so they pilfered freely to make ends meet. Lass never noticed. Well, needless to say, the silver Istiana had left with him for me was long gone. I compiled a report of what little intelligence I had for Istiana, and I hope he remembered to deliver it. The one upside is that I had the chance to spend time in Lass's library, looking at medical texts. Many were in the imperial tongue. That is how I came to know about willow and aquavit, which is useful knowledge, and some in Nahasi and Darshi, which I can read haltingly. Most intriguing to me were a handful of texts in ancient Conic, full of dashes and swirls and inscribed circles. As a child of the Parasic Sea, I would very much like to learn one day this language of my distant ancestors. One particularly depressing text was an imperial encyclopedia of all the books known to have been written in Conic. Perhaps 1 out of 20 had been translated into Calradia, and thus were recopied and preserved. The vast majority of the rest had been lost, eaten by rats, rotten, or maybe even burned deliberately. One of the servants spotted me reading and told me that, for my own good, I should put the book down. The Conic lords ruled by bending jinn and demons to their will through unholy sacrifices, he said, and their books are cursed to this day. I would have scolded him for speaking ill of my forefathers, and his forefathers too, I suppose, but he had fed me earlier and was now trying sincerely to protect me from black magic, and I thanked him for his concern instead. People speak highly of Quyaz cuisine, so I wanted to try something there other than market-stall sausages. Before I departed, I spent 3 dinars on a dinner of grilled mackerel and chickpeas in a tavern down by the port. I suppose the quality was good, but the chickpeas were doused in lemon and the fish was coated in a sesame paste, which overwhelmed the other flavors. Istiana left word that I should proceed to Provend, where my contact would be a hunter named Gosart.